community, we will miss Palm Sunday and Easter, two of the most important days of the Christian calendar because of how spring break falls on the academic calendar this year. But we must remember that Easter is a season. So we will have our Easter Sunday observance when we resume our services on Sunday, April 3rd. Amen? Amen. Today, some of you won't be surprised to know that I have changed the sermon for the day. For today, we speak from the theme, Resurrection, Glimmers. Resurrection, Glimmers. This is the fifth and final Sunday of Lent, and we are already getting glimmers of resurrection. Yet at the point that we enter the text today, Mary and Martha, they would disagree with me. For they have lost their beloved brother. And they are on the brink of hopelessness. Lazarus has been dead and buried for 4 days, and the period of mourning is in full swing. The tradition, the 4 days, mark the completion of the soul's journey from life to death. His soul, in that particular tradition at that time in antiquity, his soul no longer lingers near the body, indicating that Lazarus is truly dead. This is the scene that Jesus found upon his arrival in Bethany. The crowd was present as respect for the dead and great sympathy for the relatives are high ideals in Jewish custom. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she ran to meet him, and in deep sorrow and despair, she said to him, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died." Such a human response. Mary and Martha, they sent a message to Jesus that their brother was sick a couple of days before, so we can imagine Martha saying in her heart, "Why didn't you come at once when you received our message? Now it is surely too late." It's frustrating, isn't it, when folks don't respond to our messages? Do I have a witness today? In this day and age, with all of the mediums that carry our messages, we ensure that folks get our messages. Do I have a witness today? When I really, really need to get someone's attention, they receive a text message, an inbox message on Facebook, an email, and a voicemail on their cell phone. Do I have a witness today? Yeah. I'm trying to get at how the sisters in Bethany, Mary and Martha, must have been feeling towards their friend Jesus. The standard question these days is, did you get my text? I inboxed you, I emailed you. Didn't you get my messages? I couldn't reach you. I needed you. Our modes of communication don't just present problems, they rescue us as well. They save lives when folks are stranded on the side of the road. Somehow, we miss the notices, but if we don't pay that bill by 5 o'clock, we're in trouble. But a quick text to a parent or relative or friend brings much needed relief. Anybody ever been there, or is that just me? All right. The email, the text, or phone call can help you get out of a sticky situation just in time. What a relief when a burden has been lifted just in time. Oh, but we understand life, don't we? Sometimes things don't turn out fine. Sometimes we don't get the relief just in time. Sometimes it's just too late. I hear Martha saying, "Lord, if you had been here, my brother, who happens to be your good friend, would not have died." But Martha's faith pulled up the rear in this moment of despair as she says, "But even now I know that God will give you whatever you ask of him." I don't know, I hear a little manipulation in there. What about you? Amen. Martha's, though, her statement of faith, though, defied the facts. Lazarus was dead. She knew not even what she asked of Jesus, but she needed her Lord to do something as she spoke from a deep place of unreserved wholehearted trust in God and Jesus, whom she honestly believed was the Messiah. And Jesus tells her that her brother will rise again, and Martha echoes him, I know that he will rise again on that last day, at the end of time. She bore witness to a belief in life after physical death. But Jesus says something radical, as he often did. Martha, I am the resurrection and the life. Those who believe in me, even though they die, they will live. This statement defies logic, and theologians readily admit that a thorough explanation is really next to impossible. What was Jesus saying? Was he speaking of the death of our trespasses? Our trespasses no longer condemn us. Was Jesus thinking of the life to come? He brought into life the certainty that death is not the end. I don't know. I doubt that all of this was understood as Martha took this in. The text says that Martha ran to get Mary, who was surrounded by mourners consoling her. And she privately told her sister that the Lord was present. Mary got up quickly and ran to him and echoed Martha's sentiment. Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. And Jesus is moved by their grief and his own grief. This family of Mary, Martha, and Lazarus, they are all his friends. And then we are met with what is known as the shortest verse in the Holy Bible. Anybody ever heard it? Jesus, anybody know? Wept. Jesus wept. Jesus weeps. This is a sermon within itself. Jesus knows what we feel. Jesus knows what it means to lose a best friend to an untimely death. He knows what I was feeling at the graveside of my best friend a couple of years ago. Jesus knows what it's like to be rejected by friends and hated by enemies. He knows how it feels to be misunderstood. Jesus understands the valley of the shadow of death that psalmist wrote about, and he responds as we do. He weeps, he cries, then he requests that they take him to Lazarus' tomb. They went to the tomb of Lazarus, which was a cave with a great stone in front of it to seal it. Some in the crowd are astonished that Jesus is crying, saying things like, he must have really loved Lazarus. Some talk about him in a gossipy manner, asking, this is the one who gave sight to the blind. Why couldn't you say Lazarus from dying? Then tension and anxiety fill the air as Jesus tells them to take away the stone, to move the stone, to open the grave. Now Martha is no doubt spooked, and she suspends her grief momentarily. Oh Lord, you know what? He's been dead 4 days. I'm sure there's a stench. Jesus admonishes her, didn't I tell you that if you believed you would see the glory of God? And with that they rolled away the stone. Jesus looked toward heaven. And he gave thanks to God, and he called Lazarus by name. Lazarus, come out. I need to pause here and name how the old preachers at home would say that it was important that Jesus called Lazarus by name, because had he just said, come out, come forth, because of the power of God within him, numerous graves would have opened and many dead would have risen. Jesus says, Lazarus, and the man, 4 days dead, wrapped in traditional burial clothes of cloth, hands and feet bound, face wrapped in cloth, came forth. This miracle was a display of the glory of God and is one of a number of resurrection stories in the New Testament. Among others, God raised the widow's only son and the synagogue's leaders, his 12-year-old daughter, and friends. Let me say that God is still raising us from dead lives today. We are much like these sisters. We look at our situation or the situation of the world and we echo Mary and Martha. God, if you had been here, I wouldn't be in this mess. If you had shown up on time, if you had only shown up in time. See, the pink slip is already on the desk. The doctor's report has already come back and it's not good news. The depression is back yet again, oh God. It's too late. My mediocre grades have already been issued to the registrar. It's too late. If you had been here, oh God, if you had only been here, it's too late. Military officers have already rung the doorbell with the horrible news of the demise of a son, daughter, husband, or wife in Afghanistan. It's too late. Another major corporation has cut 5,000 more jobs. Lord, if you had only come when I called you in the first place, I wouldn't be in this dead place. Friends, God is always working out God's purposes in our lives. The way Jesus came to Mary and Martha's side is the way God hastens to us. So loyal is Jesus to us. And God, through Jesus, looks at our situations and declares, you are going to live again, because I am the resurrection and the life. And because I live in you, death does not have the last word in our lives. For I am the God of a second chance. You can experience resurrection now, new life now, renewal now, resurrection and restoration now. Is that good news for anybody today? Now. And as much as we'd like to believe the Holy One, we, like Martha, we assess the situation and we protest the call to new life. But Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days. And we often assess our lives, the lives of others, and our society, and we declare ourselves and everyone around us too far gone. The writer and theologian Joyce Rupp, she says something so profound. She says that fearful voice of resistance has echoed through the ages, leaving fragments in our souls. Fragments that say, you can't find a new life. You've been dead too long. You don't think you can change now, do you? She goes on to say, the old messages repeat themselves to those life-giving parts of us that have died and gone stinking and need to be raised up, like the self-esteem that was choked by fear, the intuition that withered with mistrust, the joy that submitted to anxiety and worry. Jesus stands at the tombs of our lives and calls the name of each dream that has died, of each effort to become sober, of each determination to walk in wholeness and wellness, and he calls out to us, ignoring the loud protest of our inner voice that cries back, you can't call that back to life, can you? There's a stench. I've rotted. We've been dead so long. The decay is irreversible. I've been down so long. And in the face of decaying lives, Jesus calls us to believe that we are called as instruments in God's glory. Lazarus was dead 4 days and had begun to decompose, and yet this was not beyond the power of God, and neither are our lives. Lazarus was dead and buried, and sometimes so are we. Sometimes we are dead to the needs of others. We are dead to the knowledge that we are all children of God, children of the universe. We are buried in the condemnation of others and self-condemnation. As I look at our politics, our presidential election, something is surely rotten in here. We are buried in a cycle of violence, of misogyny and xenophobia and homophobia and on and on. The masses have risen up, guided by fear to cheer on hateful rhetoric like build a wall, bomb all of them. That religion is bad. Those are bad people, and the bitterness and the hatred have convinced many folks that this is how this country is going to be made great. God help us. And I've had to catch myself because I have looked at the shouting and the fighting and the hatred from young folk to old folk, and I'm thinking like Martha, you can't call that back to life. It's too far gone, ain't it? And yet if we listen, we will hear God through Jesus. We will hear God through the Spirit. We will hear God saying, come forth. Come forth. Friends, we're called to pay attention to the resurrection glimmers in our midst. May we resurrect the memory of God's intention for God's world, that we would feed one another so that no one goes hungry, that we would visit the sick and in prison so that no one would be lonely, so that we would set the captive free because God has decreed our freedom. You see, we are resurrection people. I know it seems that we are too far gone, but God is always in a struggle for life. Oh, God is calling somebody forth today. Somebody is coming out of something today. I know they counted you out, but God is sending the mourners home because we who were dead in our trespasses can now live. And I hear somebody saying, but it would take a miracle, maybe so, and God is up to it. As we press on through Holy Week, where we come face to face with pain and the crucifixion of Jesus, we're on our way to Easter joy, Resurrection Sunday. That same power that raised Jesus from the dead is at work in you and me. When Lazarus heard Jesus' voice and rose, notice Jesus' next command. He calls on the community. He says, unbind him, unwrap Lazarus, and let him go, let him walk. As one theologian tells us, resurrected women, men, and children today also require caring communities that are willing to nurture and strengthen them until they are able to walk alone. Lazarus was alive, but he couldn't move because he had those grave clothes on, and neither can we. Jesus calls on all of us, to help remove the grave clothes of the recently liberated. He tells us to remove the grave clothes of self-doubt and social isolation, of marginalization and oppression, to tear away the wrappings of fear and anxiety, of loss and grief, so that unbound women and men and children might walk in dignity and become creative agents in this world. Is that good news for anybody today? Purpose of his resurrection was to display the glory of God. And your resurrection from whatever as you bound, it's always a display of God's fierce love for us and a witness to the power of God. Because you have risen, you empower others, and someone else will rise. For the Lord has need of you. We are called to this compassion that Jesus had in this story. The story of the raising of Lazarus is a precursor to another raising, another resurrection, that of the Lord himself, Jesus the Christ. Spirit which empowered Jesus was now to be given to the church for its life and mission. So we have been given this power to empower, to heal, to breathe new life into others. We are called to touch someone in love, support and gird someone up, someone deemed unclean, untouchable, dead. Compassion will often lead you into the unorthodox, moving the status quo, doing the right thing, and like Jesus, sometimes breaking the rules. Do I have a witness today? For we have been given resurrection glimmers to remind us that we are resurrection people. As I close, Joyce Rupp says it best: this Easter, let us welcome our inner Lazarus. Let the stone unseal the stinking. Let the risen voice resurrect our deadness and give it an entrance into the light. God have mercy. May it be so. May it be so. God bless you today, friend.